I called my mother 14 times while I was in labor. 14 times. She didn't answer once. Know where she was? Getting my brother's feet professionally buffed at a luxury spa. While I had an emergency C-section. Alone. So, I took a screenshot of his pedicure appointment, posted it next to a photo of my newborn son's tiny foot, and wrote, "One foot entered the world alone yesterday. The other got a spa treatment. Guess which one my parents chose?" What happened next destroyed my family, but it saved my son from ever feeling what I felt that day. My name is Nicole Harper. I'm 33 years old. And this is how I learned that being strong doesn't mean you deserve to suffer alone. The hospital bag had been sitting by the front door for 3 weeks. I'd packed it myself, folded the tiny onesies, tucked in socks so small they barely fit 2 fingers, zipped it shut and placed it right there so I wouldn't have to think when the time came. Because I already knew when the time came, I'd be alone. Not lonely alone. Alone alone. Nobody coming. Nobody there. That's just how my life worked. I'm a surgical nurse in Phoenix, Arizona. For 9 years, I've stood in operating rooms watching doctors work without flinching. I've handed scalpels with steady hands while families fell apart in waiting rooms. Steady was what I knew how to be. My whole life, steady was the price I paid to stay loved. My husband, Jason, was deployed overseas. He'd shipped out 5 months earlier. His last words at the airport were whispered into my hair while he held me tighter than ever before. He'd rubbed my belly, still small then, and promised he'd be back before the baby came. He almost made it. That Saturday morning, I woke up at 5:47 a.m. to a feeling I couldn't name. Not pain exactly. Pressure. A tightening low in my back that came and went like a slow tide. I was 35 weeks along. As a nurse, I knew 4 weeks early wasn't a crisis, but it wasn't nothing either. I sat on the edge of the bed, pressed my hand against my stomach, and waited. The apartment was silent, the kind of silence that has weight. I picked up my phone. Call number 1, 6:03 a.m. My mother's phone rang 4 times. Voicemail. Patricia's voice on the recording was warm and familiar. The same voice that sang to me as a child. The same voice that now mostly called when she needed something. I left a message. Short. Calm. "Mom, it's me. I'm not feeling right. Think the baby might be coming early. Could really use some company. Call me back." I waited. The tightening came again. I timed it. 7 minutes since the last one. Call number 2, 6:11 a.m. Voicemail again. I made chamomile tea and stood at the kitchen window watching the sky shift from black to gray to pale morning blue. I thought about my father, Vincent, probably still asleep. I thought about my brother, Dylan, 29 years old, still living in our parents' spare room, still talking about his modeling career, still sending photos of his hands to agencies that never responded, still treated like royalty by our parents. I remembered when Dylan got a paper cut once and Mom canceled a family dinner because he needed to rest his hands. Call number 3, 6:19 a.m. Call number 4, 6:24 a.m. Call number 5, 6:31 a.m. By the time contractions were 5 minutes apart, I'd called 8 times. The bag was at the door. I picked it up, grabbed my keys, drove myself to the hospital. What happened next, nobody should ever experience alone. Keep watching. The Drive. 7:02 a.m. Saturday. The drive to Mercy General took 13 minutes. I timed 2 contractions on the way. 1 hand on the wheel, 1 hand on my belly, breathing through each wave. I parked in the emergency lot, pulled the bag from the back seat, walked through the sliding glass doors with the same face I wore to work. Steady. Chin up, eyes clear. The triage nurse saw my face and moved fast. How far apart? 4 minutes. Who's with you? Nobody. She didn't ask why. Just got me moving. Within 20 minutes, I was on a gurney with monitors strapped to my belly. The numbers on the screen told a story I already understood. The baby's heart rate was dropping, in patterns it shouldn't drop. The on-call OB came in with that practiced calm all medical people learn. We need to do an emergency C-section.
Right now.
Baby's in distress. I signed the consent form myself. My hand didn't shake. Do you want to call someone? The nurse asked gently. I looked at the door, then back at the ceiling. I already did. Call number 9, 7:30, 4 a.m. While they prepped me for surgery, I tried again. Voicemail. Call number 10, 7:41 a.m. Call number 11, 7:48 a.m. A nurse with kind eyes and box braids squeezed my hand and stayed beside me as they wheeled me down the hall. The lights overhead moved past one by one.
Bright.
Even. Like seconds ticking away. Call number 12, 7:53 a.m. In the pre-op area, I tried one more time. Nothing. I put the phone on the metal tray beside me and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in another part of the city, my mother was awake. She had her phone. She was choosing not to answer. That knowledge settled over me like cold water. You won't believe what my parents were actually doing. Stay with me. The surgery. 8:17 a.m., Saturday. The operating room was cold and smelled like antiseptic and metal. I'd been on the other side of rooms like this hundreds of times. I knew every sound. The click of instruments. The hum of surgical lights. The steady beeping of monitors. But being the patient, being alone while they cut into you was different. The anesthesiologist talked me through the epidural in a calm, low voice. I focused on breathing while he worked. Nobody who knew my name was in that building. Call number 13, 8:22 a.m. Right before they started, I asked the nurse to try one more time. She held my phone to my ear. It rang. And rang. Voicemail. Call number 14, 8:26 a.m. One final attempt. The phone rang 4 times. Then voicemail. Again. The nurse squeezed my shoulder. I'm so sorry, honey. I wasn't crying. I was past that. I just nodded and handed the phone back. Let's meet this baby, I said. The surgery took 33 minutes. When the baby cried, it was the loudest sound in the world.
Small.
Furious. Completely alive. The nurse brought him close, so I could see his face. He had Jason's nose. My grandmother's ears. He was the most real thing I'd ever seen. His name is Cameron, I whispered. When they brought him back, clean and wrapped tight, I held him against my chest. And something moved inside me that had nothing to do with the surgery. Not grief. I'd expected grief. Instead, it felt like a door closing. Quiet. Final. Not angry. Just done. There was an empty chair beside my hospital bed. I looked at it once. Then I looked back at my son. And I never looked at that chair again. 3 hours later, I discovered the truth. And everything changed. The discovery. 11:43 a.m., Saturday. The morphine was doing its slow, warm work. Cameron was asleep on my chest, his breathing so soft it barely moved my hospital gown. I hadn't called my parents again. Somewhere between the recovery room and the maternity ward, I'd made a decision. I was done being the one who reached out. With one hand holding Cameron steady, I opened Instagram with the other. My mother's profile loaded. The most recent post was a photo. Posted 47 minutes ago. Mom was smiling at the camera, head tilted in that way she always smiled.
Warm.
Easy to love. Dylan sat beside her in a wide leather spa chair. His feet submerged in a basin of water with rose petals floating on the surface. The lighting was golden. The tiles were white marble. A woman in a spa uniform was bent over his left foot with a buffer. The caption read, "Treating our boy. Family spa day nail polish sparkles." I checked the timestamp. Posted at 10:56 a.m. I had been on the operating table at 8:30 a.m. I stared at that photo for a long time. I didn't cry. Something cold and very clear moved through me instead. The same feeling I got in the OR when a situation escalated and emotion became a luxury I couldn't afford. My brain shifted into a mode I knew well.
Document.
Preserve.
Proceed.
I took a screenshot. Then I opened the comment section and screenshotted that too. 3 of Mom's friends had already commented with heart emojis. You deserve this. 2 hearts. Best mom ever. Dylan's going to be a star. I saved everything to a folder labeled with today's date. Then I remembered something Jason had set up before he deployed. What I heard next made me realize this wasn't neglect.
It was a choice. The audio.
Jason had installed a small audio monitor in my parents' living room 6 weeks before he left. He'd done it quietly during our last visit. Said if something went wrong and I couldn't reach him, at least there would be a record. He'd show me how to access the feed from my phone. I'd forgotten about it until this moment. I found the audio file from this morning. Press play with the volume low.
Cameron's still sleeping against my chest.
For a few seconds, just background noise.
TV sounds.
Something clicking in the kitchen. Then Mom's voice.
Clear.
Unhurried. Nicole is strong. She doesn't need us. Dylan has that casting call tomorrow. His feet have to be perfect. A pause. Then Dad's voice. Quieter. She called 14 times, Patricia. Silence for a moment. Then Mom again. She's a nurse. She knows what to do. I pressed stop. Sat with that for a moment. 14 times. Dad had counted. He'd known. And he'd stayed in that chair anyway. I saved the audio file to the same folder. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't used in years. Martin Cross. My grandmother's estate attorney. Nana Rose had passed 3 years ago. Left a trust fund meant to help the family in emergencies. My parents had been the trustees. I never paid much attention to how they managed it. Until now. I texted Martin one sentence. I need to talk about the trustee clause. Tomorrow morning, if you're available. He replied within 5 minutes. I'll make time. I've been waiting for this call. What the lawyer told me the next day made everything make sense. And gave me the weapon I needed. The attorney. Sunday morning, hospital room. Cameron slept in the bassinet beside my bed while Martin Cross sat in the visitor's chair with a thick folder. He was in his 60s.
Calm.
Methodical. He'd handled Nana Rose's affairs for 20 years. Your grandmother was very specific about the trust, he began. She named your parents as primary trustees. But she also named you as the medical oversight trustee. I frowned. What does that mean? It means you have the legal authority to review any withdrawals made for medical or emergency purposes. And you have the power to freeze the account if you believe it's being misused. He opened the folder. In the last 18 months alone, your parents have withdrawn $67,000. My stomach dropped. For what? Martin slid a spreadsheet across the table. Line by line, itemized. Professional photography sessions for Dylan. $4, 200-inch hand modeling agency fees. $8, 500 luxury skincare treatments. $12, 300 business investment opportunities. $18, 000 spa treatments and grooming. $6, 800 rent assistance for Dylan. $17,200. I stared at the numbers. This is what they chose over answering my calls yesterday. Martin nodded slowly. Your grandmother suspected this might happen. That's why she built in the oversight clause. She wanted you protected. What can I do? I can freeze the account immediately. File a misappropriation claim. They have to pay back every dollar. I looked at Cameron sleeping peacefully, then back at Martin. Do it. All of it. There's one more thing you should know, Martin said carefully. If you freeze the account, your parents will have no access to any funds. Dylan's rent, his career expenses, everything. It stops immediately. I felt something settle in my chest. Good. That afternoon, my parents showed up at the hospital, but they were already too late. The blocked visit. Sunday afternoon, 2:17 p.m. I'd been discharged that morning. Private discharge. Quiet.
Quick.
The kind I'd helped coordinate for patients dozens of times. I was already home, sitting in the nursery in the wide rocking chair Jason had assembled before he left. The one with a small dent on the armrest where he dropped a screwdriver. Cameron was on my chest, making small sounds in his sleep. My phone buzzed. A text from the maternity ward nurse I'd worked with for years. Your parents just showed up asking for you. Thought you'd want to know. I texted back. What did you tell them? That you'd been discharged under privacy protection. Their names aren't on the authorized contact list. Another message came through. Actually, their names are on a different list. The restricted access list. I smiled for the first time in 2 days. Thank you.
Anytime.
That baby is lucky to have you. Red heart. I put the phone down and held Cameron a little tighter. They'd driven all the way to the hospital. 24 hours too late. And they couldn't even get past the front desk. But I wasn't done. Not even close. What I did next went viral. The Post. Sunday evening, 6:30, 4 p.m. I sat in the nursery with my laptop open. Cameron was fed and sleeping. The house was quiet. I pulled up the family group chat I hadn't opened in weeks. Then I uploaded 2 images side by side. Image 1. Cameron's tiny foot. Curled and wrinkled and perfect. Taken in the hospital 3 hours after birth. Image 2. A screenshot of Dylan's spa appointment confirmation. Timestamped and itemized. Luxury pedicure package. $180. Date. Saturday. Time. 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Beneath both images, I typed one line. One foot entered the world alone yesterday. The other got buffed and polished. Guess which one my parents chose. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't add explanation. Just posted it and put my phone face down on the table. By that night, a cousin had shared it. Then a friend of that cousin. By morning, someone had tagged the spa. By Monday afternoon, my parents' faces were recognizable enough in the neighborhood that the spa's manager made a quiet decision about future bookings under their name. I wasn't watching any of it. I was in the nursery when I heard the car pull up outside. Then heels on the walkway. Then Mom's voice, high and unsteady, calling my name through the door. Dad was there too. His voice lower, saying my name the way he used to when I was little. I dressed slowly, lifted Cameron and held him against my shoulder, walked to the front door, and opened it. The confrontation that followed was the coldest thing I've ever done. And I don't regret a second of it. The confrontation. Mom looked like she hadn't slept. Eyes red, lipstick uneven, hands shaking in that way they did when she was scared. Dad stood one step behind her, hands in his coat pockets, looking at the ground. Standing to my left, just inside the doorway, was Martin Cross. Mom opened her mouth to speak. I didn't let her. I reached into the folder Martin was holding and pulled out 2 documents. Held them out with the steady hand of a woman who'd signed consent forms alone on a gurney and never flinched. Document 1, a no-contact order. Filed that morning, covering both my parents and Dylan. Active immediately. Family court stamp in the upper right corner. Document 2, an itemized statement. Every withdrawal from Nana Rose's trust over the last 3 years. Listed by date and amount. Below that, a line for the cost of a private hospital discharge. Below that, one final line typed in plain font. Emotional abandonment during life-threatening medical emergency. $0. I don't charge for what you can't afford. Mom made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Her hands reached toward Cameron. That instinctive grandmother reach. I stepped back. One small, deliberate step. Nicole, please. Mom's voice broke. I called 14 times. I said quietly. 14. We didn't know it was that serious. You didn't care enough to find out. Dad finally looked up. We thought you had it under control. You're always so strong. Being strong doesn't mean I deserve to be alone. Silence. Dylan needed. Mom started. Dylan is 29 years old. I cut her off. I needed my mother. Your grandson needed his grandmother. And you chose a pedicure. Mom was crying now. We made a mistake.
No. My voice was ice.
A mistake is forgetting to call back once. This was a choice. 14 chances to choose me. You chose him every single time. I nodded to Martin. He stepped forward with a 3rd document. The trust has been frozen, he said calmly. Pending investigation for misappropriation of funds. All withdrawals have been suspended indefinitely. Dad's face went white. You can't do that. She already did, Martin replied. She has full legal authority as medical trustee. Mom's legs seemed to give out. She grabbed the doorframe. That money, Dylan's rent, his career. Should have thought about that before you ignored me on an operating table. I looked at both of them. My parents. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. You have 5 seconds to leave my property before I call the police for trespassing. Nicole, please, we're your family. No, I said. You were. You're not anymore. I closed the door. Quiet. Final. No yelling. No thrown objects. No broken dishes.
Just the sound of the latch catching.
Then, after a moment, heels retreating down the walkway. A car door closing. An engine starting.
Silence.
What happened next surprised even me. Keep watching for the ending. 1 month later. Cameron was 6 weeks old. Jason had come home on emergency leave 3 days after the birth, held his son for the first time, and cried for 20 minutes straight. He'd seen the Instagram post, heard the audio recording, read every document. "I'm so proud of you," he'd whispered that first night. "And I'm so sorry I wasn't there." "You're here now," I'd said. "That's what matters." The no-contact order was holding. My parents had tried to reach out twice through relatives. Both times, I'd forwarded the messages to Martin, who sent formal cease and desist letters. The trust investigation was ongoing. Martin said it was likely my parents would have to repay most of what they'd withdrawn. Dylan had moved out of their house. Apparently couldn't afford rent without the trust fund subsidizing it. I heard through a cousin that he was working at a car wash now. His modeling career hadn't worked out. I felt nothing about that. Not satisfaction. Not guilt. Just nothing. One afternoon, I was rocking Cameron when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is your mother. Please. I just want to meet my grandson. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed back. "You had your chance. You chose a spa day. Live with that choice." I blocked the number.
Cameron made a small sound.
I looked down at his face. Those perfect ears. That tiny nose. "You'll never have to compete with a pedicure for my love," I whispered. The chair rocked. The room stayed quiet. And that was enough. Epilogue. 6 months later. I was back at work 3 days a week. Jason's deployment was over. He was home for good now. We'd moved into a bigger place with a yard and a proper nursery. Cameron was thriving, rolling over, laughing, growing. One evening, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, from my mother. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. "Dear Nicole, I know you won't forgive me. I don't expect you to, but I need you to know I see it now. What I did, what I chose. I thought being strong meant you didn't need anyone. I was wrong. Your father and I are in therapy. We're trying to understand how we failed you so completely." Dylan moved to California. He's working construction. Says he's done trying to be something he's not. I don't know if you'll ever let me meet Cameron. I don't deserve it. But I hope someday you can tell him his grandmother was sorry. Even if she was too late. Mom. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe one day I'd respond. Maybe I wouldn't. But today, I had everything I needed. A husband who came home. A son who'd never doubt he was chosen. And the knowledge that being strong doesn't mean suffering alone. It means knowing when to close the door on people who only show up after it's too late. I picked up Cameron and held him close. "You are so loved," I whispered. "Every single day. No conditions. No competition." He grabbed my finger with his tiny hand and smiled. "If you made it this far, thank you. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about boundaries, worth, knowing that you can be strong and still deserve support. Being strong doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is close the door on people who only value you when it's convenient." Hit that like button if you believe family should show up when it matters, not just when it's easy. Subscribe for more stories about boundaries, justice, and choosing yourself. A comment below. Have you ever had to cut off family? How did you handle it? And remember, you are never too strong to deserve love and support.